I'm Rachel Alday, and this is the Hospitality Breakroom, a podcast full of nuggets and secret sauce, where every Monday we'll shed light on what we've learned from the countless mistakes we've made along our journey in the chaotic and rewarding world of vacation rentals. Hi, and welcome back to the Hospitality Breakroom. I'm Rachel Alday, and I have Jessie with me today. Jessie is on our guest services and concierge team. And she's going to help us talk about what the homeowners might not realize goes into offering really good concierge services to our guests. So, how are you, Jessie?
I'm doing well. How are you, Rachel?
I'm good.
Good.
Okay, so Jessie has worked with us. It's sort of, she took like a brief interlude, like a sabbatical, shall we say? But so like the first, when you were working for us, how long? Was it like a year, longer than a year?
Yeah, so I had started in October of 2022.
Okay.
And then I ended up leaving November 2023.
Okay.
And then I came back in October 2023.
Okay.
So not too long
Yeah.
that I was gone.
Okay.
I couldn't stay away from you guys.
Right? This is like a common theme. Just kidding. It's not that common. But I mean, I think you're the second person. Is that right? Because Brad.
Oh, yeah. I think
Is there anyone else?
Not that I can think of.
Working in a boat.
Charlie.
Oh, yeah.
Charlie, our driver.
Well, he's like a seasonal driver at
Yeah.
Black Bear. Yeah, Charlie's amazing. Okay, so I feel like working in a boat, it's like addictive sort of, right?
Kind
Because
of.
like when you work in guest services or concierge or like kind of any of the guest or homeowner facing roles, I feel like it's incredibly, incredibly stressful, especially in the winter.
Mhm.
It's like, it's almost like, I don't know if I've said this on the podcast before, but I know I've said it in the office. It's like training for like the SEAL team. Like, what is that? Is that the Navy? I think it's
yeah.
the Navy.
Yeah, Navy
Where
SEALs.
it's like, it's like 1% of the applicants make it through the training.
Mhm.
And I feel like that's how like a winter is
You can't make it through basic.
in a ski town. Yeah. Like it's like, well, it's way worse than basic, right?
Yes.
It's like SEAL training is like where people go and it's like they tell everyone like only 3 out of the 50 of you is going to make it through this because like everyone's like ends up like crying on the ground and like
Mhm.
writhing in pain. And I feel like, I mean, not, we do want homeowners to listen to this. And I don't want them to get totally freaked out, but I do feel like the volume of work that we have in the winter and then the amount of guests, and then because we manage high-end properties
Mhm.
and the price points for the nightly rates are so high, that really does like turn up the intensity
Mhm.
if someone's frustrated. I mean, also it's like most of our guests are traveling with their family. That also turns up the intensity
Mhm.
on people's like,
Young kids,
short
it's
fuse
late.
situation.
Yeah.
Yes. And so it's like anyone that's especially guest facing, I feel like
Mhm.
in the winter, it's like really taxing. And I feel like we always tell people this in advance, like when they're working here,
Mhm.
but then it's hard to understand like what we really mean until you're in it.
Mhm.
And then as we go through the season, it's like, I feel like Rob and I are like holding on, being like, I hope everyone can make it through the season. Cause once you're
Mhm.
through like March,
Oh, yeah.
then it's like childbirth. It's like, you
breeze.
kind of were like, it wasn't that bad.
Right.
And then
What were
by
we scared of?
yeah. And then you get through the summer and then you kind of get to like October and you're like, oh, this will be great. I'm so excited for the season. And then again, it's kind of the same old thing. So, so I'm just really, really grateful that you're still here and you made it from October all the way into, I mean, really, we're approaching the end of February.
Mhm.
So it's like, basically we have like 2 days left, which I know it's actually a month, but I feel like from now until the end of March is going to feel like 3 days.
Oh, yeah.
Like not in it. Like some of the days will feel like 7 days. One day will
Mhm.
feel like 7, but somehow by the time we get to March, I feel like when we look back,
Mhm.
we'll be like, oh, that was like so quick.
Yeah.
And
Once you get through Christmas and Sundance, it turns into a breeze.
yeah.
And then we just got to keep it going.
Yes. It's pretty crazy. Okay. So Jessie has worked here for basically like a year and a half with a brief interlude. And she's making it through her second season alive, barely, but alive. You look good.
Thank you.
And so we were going to have Jessie talk about some of the details of guest services / concierge. This, I always say slash, I always say property management and vacation rentals because I think there's two distinct parts of what we do. And like
Mhm.
property management is really important and it's kind of not really telling the whole truth if you just say vacation rentals because there's this
Mhm.
whole property management side. I feel the same when I talk about guest services and concierge. Like I feel like if I just say concierge, it's not covering the whole picture because there's
Mhm.
guest services in there. And if I say just guest services and I don't say concierge, like, it's not So anyway, I hope people don't think I'm weird that I repetitively say guest services and concierge. But I think it's really important because in my opinion, that whole package of services is really separated into two things, but it's almost impossible to like break them apart. So
Right.
it's like a whole thing.
Like guest services, if you have your guests going snowmobiling the next day and their hot tub is messed up the night before,
Right.
that's all part of the same service.
Yeah.
So like you gotta hop on the hot tub so that they can have a great snowmobile trip.
Yes.
So it's like all these factors.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, this is interesting actually. Like this might be a nugget for homeowners. And I don't think everyone gets this. And I think even people in the industry, like in the vacation rental industry, I think this is an area where maybe people that are newer to the industry think that you can divide things. And I have found in actual experience of being in the business, it's really hard to divide it. And that is that, you kind of want, in terms of like hiring people and having your staff organized, you kind of want like concierge to be more closely aligned with like, say, the reservation sales team, because this is a sales function. It has to do with like closing and understanding how to market and merchandise, basically like these services that you're offering, and how to sell that and close it for these guests or homeowners. And that's different because guest services is more about like, can I have more towels? We need more paper towels. Like the toilet's overflowing. Can you send someone over? Like that sort of communication ongoing with the guest or the homeowner, and like responding quickly and kindly. That to me, that's guest services, right? But from the guest standpoint, these two things are not separate. And my experience is, even in 17 years, no matter how you want to try and communicate to the guest that, concierge is like when you want to book things, when you want to create an itinerary, when you want to make reservations or plan activities, like that's your concierge. And then anything that has to do with like the house or like needing, refills on your amenities, like shampoo and conditioner or whatever, like that's guest services. No matter how you try and like explain that or word it or make it simple with two different text lines or however you do it, the guest always ends up really just seeing that as one place to go. And so it's really hard to separate it in terms of your team, because there's going to be so much confusion. Like your concierge is going to get guest services requests and vice versa. And so I feel like that's something interesting for homeowners to realize, because in terms of the vacation rental company and staffing and like having a team, the person that can sell concierge and can create itineraries, like curated experiences, is not necessarily the same person that's going to be the best person to be like constantly answering all the other kind of guest requests. And it's really hard. It's kind of a conundrum that we're always working on solving.
For sure.
As Jessie knows better than anyone. Okay. So Jessie was telling me earlier that she, like, one of her favorite things to do with the guests is when they're calling and they're asking us like, well, tell me about the property, like what's close by, all that kind of stuff. And she feels like she's gotten super good, which I have to agree, on talking to the guests and kind of giving them the rundown on like what's near them and making really good, authentic, tried and true, like local kind of tips. So you want to go into the details of that, like how you do that?
Yeah, of course. So my job, I get a bunch of emails, or I get texts, or I get word of mouth from sales that somebody's needing answers on something. So when I talk to the guest, I am getting the address, and then I'm pinpointing on Google Maps what's closest by. If I'm not physically there in Jackson, like I am here in Park City, then I'm saying, okay, there's the shuttle that can get you here to here. Here's your closest lift. Here's the best restaurant near you. My favorite coffee shop. This kind of stuff, just to kind of get them an idea of what they're getting into, because a lot of people have never been to Jackson or Sun Valley or Park City, and it's so scary to not know what you're getting into. It's like, what if you go and it's the worst restaurant ever? But if there's somebody that's been there and they have something to give, that gives them like that opportunity to be like, okay, I know that they liked it. They're here in Jackson. I feel better about going here. It's just kind of like reassuring them that, like, yes, this is why you booked with us, and this is what we offer. And it's just kind of like just
like more efficient, easier, like makes people feel more calm about their trip. Because it's like a lot of times there's like one family member booking the trip for the rest of the family, and then they're probably worried that like, well, are they going to have fun? What are they going to do?
Right. Yeah. Like for instance, I've been speaking with a an assistant
Okay.
who has never been to Park City before, doesn't know anything about the resorts. Like, can you snowboard at Deer Valley?
Yes.
No.
No,
But
you
like,
can't.
those are the things, you can Google it all day, but
Right.
if you just call us, we've got the answers right here for you.
Yes.
And, like, this is where to ship your packages. This is my favorite flower shop. Do you want me to pick these up for you?
Yeah.
If you'd like to do it yourself, we'll take them to your abode for you.
Yeah.
Like, just getting those details like off of their shoulders.
Yeah.
Is just, it's my favorite thing to just like get everything like ready for them so that they can just come in and stay and have a great time.
Well, and I mean, so most of our team, we mostly hire people that have lived in the market where they're work. So, we operate in Park City, Utah, Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and Sun Valley, Idaho. And so most of our staff, depending on which market they're in, they've been there in that ski town for a number of years. So like, how many years has it been that you've lived? Jesse lives in a town, Colville, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like just, I don't know, 20 minutes outside, 15 from
it's like 20-25 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
From Park City. And it's actually like a really pretty area.
Mm-hmm.
I love it there. Okay. But so how long have you guys lived? Oh, so Jesse and her fiance both worked here for a period of time, which was awesome. And I know a lot of people think like working with your partner or your spouse in life could be hard, but obviously Rob and I, my husband Rob and I own the company and we did this together. And while that's not the easiest thing, it can be fun.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so Jesse and her fiance, and they live together. How long have you guys been here?
So I was born here in Utah.
Oh,
my parents,
I forgot. Okay.
Yeah. So they owned a deli on Main Street. And
Love
so they were from Asheville. They lived here till 2002. We went back to Asheville and then I came back in 2015.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I've been here since 2015. So 10 years now.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, when I moved here, I sold ski wear and I hadn't skied before.
I love it.
So like, in order to sell something, you got to know all about it, feel it, see what it's like.
Yeah.
Like, and it's kind of the same idea here. Just like, you got to look at the house and see from a guest perspective what they're talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah, so been here 10 years. Chris has been here, I think 7 or 8 years.
Okay.
And then we've been living in Colville since 2022.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And then because you do ski a lot now, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I see social. I love it.
Oh, yes.
I feel like that's the best thing. Like when our team can actually do the things that like people move here for. I love that. And okay, so this is a huge point. Like if you're a homeowner and you have a property, it doesn't necessarily have to be like you're in a ski town. This could be like if you're in a beach town or wherever. I do think one thing to think about is with your property manager, making sure they have people on their team, and whether they call it guest services or concierge, whether they separate that out or not. I'm totally down to debate that. If you should do that or not any day, feel free to reach out to Jesse and I via like whatever, LinkedIn or email.
Oh, yeah.
And we can have the debate of concierge versus guest services versus upsells all day long. It's like one of my favorite topics. But anyway, if you're a homeowner and you have someone managing your house and they're doing rentals, you definitely want to make sure that they have some sort of guest services or concierge available. And then the other thing to look at is like, are the people that are offering those services, how long have they been local to that place? And do they really understand the kind of local special culture? So like, I don't know, if you're in the mountains of like North Carolina, let's say, or maybe there's like, some sort of vibe going on there. I've probably wineries and different things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, how knowledgeable are they on that? If you're in, California and it's like some sort of a beach town, maybe are the people that are working for you able to really, understand the surf culture and whatever else, and so that they can offer, guests experiences or informed opinions on that. And then obviously like a ski town, you want people who know the ski runs, who like have skied before, who get the whole like cultural vibe of living in a ski town, and that they can like recommend whatever it is, which might be like the best sandwich shop.
Yeah.
Or the best ski run, or maybe in the summer, it's like the best mountain biking trail or whatever.
It's like the locals insight that you can't Google.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I think that's the difference between like, there's so many differences, but one of the main differences I think between like hotel stays and vacation rental stays, one of the strengths, like the strongest, I think like one of the most important factors that differentiates vacation rentals from hotels is authenticity. Because you're staying in like someone's personal mountain house.
Yeah,
if you're
they've
staying
opened their doors to you.
Yes.
And this is the experience that they bought this house for.
Right.
They want you to share it.
And like hotel stays, what they have up on vacation rentals, like one of the things they have on us is that there's, these established brands in hotels. So you can stay like at a Marriott or a Hyatt and you know what you're getting there's an established brand that's a consistency. So in vacation rentals, we don't have that yet. Who knows what will happen in the future? But currently, we don't have those big brands. So we don't have the consistency. But what we have to sort of like balance that out, and I think sometimes it can be stronger than a brand based on the company that you're booking through and how consistent they are with their service and cleanliness and stuff. But we have authenticity because, people that we hire are not coming into some like corporate hiring program where they're supposed to be sort of standardized and sort of maybe trained to be like a bit like robots with, really similar responses. Like when you're dealing with vacation rental companies, you have a much more authentic team of people, hopefully, that are able to offer much more in-depth, personalized insight. And I think that's what a lot of people are looking for when they book a vacation rental.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's really important for homeowners to know too, is like, while you want the company that's managing your house to be like consistent and to have high standards, you also want to embrace the people on the team that like have all the authentic local knowledge, because that's what's going to make these guests staying at your house have a much better experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So we were talking about Jesse's ability to like understand these properties and know what's around them. So have you been out to Jackson Hole yet?
I have.
Okay. Was that recent?
I went in November.
Okay. Okay. So I thought there was like a trip not that long
Yeah.
ago. And then, so we do try to do this like for companies out there that have multiple markets, or for homeowners, if you have your house managed by a company that has multiple markets, another thing that you could ask is like, do the sales team, like the reservation sales team, and also do the guest services and or concierge teams, do they get to go out and visit whatever the other markets are outside from the one that they're living in? Number one, are they local? Because they could be remote, which that to me would pose a bit of a concern. But this is, personal to us. We don't believe in having anyone on our reservation sales team like not have been someone that has lived in these places and, experienced it at least for a significant amount of time. Almost all of our reservation salespeople are local. And one of them was here for years and years and now works out of California. But
he knows Park City like the back of his hand.
Yeah, he's like, he was in Park City forever.
Yeah.
And then also like for concierge and guest services, I do think, sometimes you have to have like overnight help, different ways. Maybe that's remote, but, especially during the day, like the 9 to 5, you really want to have someone local. So I think that's something for homeowners to ask.
Yeah.
Their, management companies. And then also to ask, like, let's say like for us, like Jesse's based in Park City, but we also manage houses at Abode. We manage also in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and Sun Valley, Idaho. And so it's like, we try to make a point to take the reservation sales team and the concierge team to Jackson Hole and Sun Valley at least once a year so that they can go see those houses, see what the locations are like, and be able to offer that kind of insight, like Jesse said. So I think that's something to think about as well. Okay. Then Jesse and I also talked about earlier, like, what are some of the worst parts of her job, sort of like the hardest parts? Because I think it's really good for homeowners to understand, like what I always say, which is like how the sausage is made. But it's like, it's kind of a double-edged sword, because it's like, I don't want to, I want the homeowners to really have just like a sense of ease and comfort, knowing that their house is taken care of, the guests are taken care of, and they don't have to worry about a thing. But I also think sometimes it's good for them to have a bit of an insight into what I always say is like how the sausage is made, which is like the messy, crazy part of how this all works. Because even though we make it look easy, it's not actually that easy. So do you want to talk about some of the parts that are like the hardest?
Sure.
Just to kind of give insight, I feel like, into, like how complicated this can get or uncomfortable or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the most difficult part is just wanting to say yes to every single guest, but we also have to set a standard for pacing when it comes to late checkouts, early check-ins, those things. Because our team goes in after every single reservation and checks the whole house, broken windows, all the faucets, anything like that, to just ensure that the homes are being taken care of.
Yeah.
And so I always have to explain that to the guests wanting to get in at 12 p.m. when our check-in time is at 4 p.m. We still need those few hours to ensure that the whole home is completely like inspected and perfect for you. Because that's what we do. We're not just a luxury rentals company. We are property managers too, and we're managing your property.
Thank you for bringing that back.
Of course,
love it. Yeah. So okay, this is what Jesse and I were talking about. Was like one of the hardest parts of her job is probably. Tell me if I'm saying this right.
Go ahead.
Like the frequency with which we are asked to find a way to get someone an early arrival, an early
Mhm.
check-in, and or to allow for them to check out late. So at Abode, and this could be different like with different companies, but this is fairly standard across the industry, I think. Our check-in time is 4 p.m. and our departure time, our checkout time is 10 a.m.
Mhm.
And so oftentimes based on where people are flying in from, because our markets, all of our markets are fly to, meaning the vast majority of the guests that are coming and they're flying in, not driving. So since they're flying, they can't necessarily, based on flight availability, find a flight that's getting them in so they can get to Park City or Jackson or Sun
Mhm.
Valley perfectly close to their arrival time. So a lot of times if they're coming from, it's usually the East Coast. Is that right?
Mhm.
Or wait, no, is it California? Because that's earlier.
There's a lot of Californians coming in. There's a lot of East Coasters coming in. I mean, people anywhere and everywhere.
Yeah.
I
And it
talked
kind
to
of
people
depends
from
each
all over.
market.
Yeah. But
But anyway, so when people are flying in and they're getting into town, let's say like 10 a.m. sometimes,
Mhm.
then, depending on which market, because like the airport that you fly into for Jackson and Sun Valley is like very, very close. If people fly into Salt Lake City, then they have like a half an hour so they can get to Park City. But anyway, people are coming into town early. And of
Mhm.
course, especially if they have kids and stuff. And look, even if they don't have kids, they probably have like ski stuff. Maybe they don't have skis. Maybe they just have boots, but like they have a lot of luggage.
Mhm.
Because even in the summer, it's like they might have, gear because they're going to go hiking or fishing or mountain biking. It's like usually people coming to mountain markets have a ton of luggage.
Mhm.
So it's not like they can just like take their luggage and go to lunch.
Right.
Right. So it's like there's a very common request for an early arrival. And of course, we want to tell them yes. Like if we could in any way get them in early, we know that would make them happy from the moment they walk in the house. And we're like already on the right path to a good review.
Yeah.
So it's like, of course, we want to get them in. And same thing with people checking out. Like some people checking out at 10 a.m., but maybe their flight's not till 4 p.m. And again, if they have kids or whatever, even if they don't, they have all this luggage, they don't know where to go until they have to, be there at the airport. And so it's really hard. And I think this is what you meant. It's like really stressful because you've worked so hard to make the guests happy, whether it's like for their whole trip and now we're trying to get them a late checkout, or they're about to arrive. You've done all this planning for their concierge services and like their itinerary, but now you're going to like make them unhappy after all that work by saying no to their early check-in. So it's so hard because you want to do it. But if there's the same day, like departure, and then they're checking in, then that means we have to do all of our inspections and cleaning within just like a couple hours.
And if there's crazy weather, that's also
like
another
today,
thing.
We had a huge storm today.
It's huge today.
Yeah.
Yeah, like even this morning, I had a travel agent who had reached out to me weeks prior, needing an early
I
check-in.
think I saw this email going through.
2:30. Yeah. And I went straight to my operations team. I was like, is there any way that we can just guarantee this 2:30 check-in? But it's the holiday weekend, President's weekend.
Yeah.
And that's even something I forgot about.
And a massive storm, literally like at this moment
storm.
just started. Yeah.
Right. And so like, I really want to tell the guests, I'm like, I promise I'm advocating for you as hard as possible.
Right.
But I have to set this pace because if I overpromise and then we can't do it, then that's way worse.
Yeah.
It's better to say, we will do our best to get you in at 2:30, but we have to ensure that the whole property is inspected properly.
Yeah.
And in case of any circumstances arise, we need to guarantee like 4 p.m. is the standard, but we'll see what we can do.
Yeah.
But like just setting that pace and explaining why. Like I think that's the disconnect some of the guest services people have is they don't think they can tell the whole truth.
Yes. Like
to the guest.
Like they're trying to keep it a shorter conversation.
Right.
And the trick is definitely, I'm with you on this.
Yeah.
Clarity is kindness.
That's
like say more. Tell them as much as you can, right?
Be honest. Like that's what I saw in our recent reviews of like the honesty and like the just getting back to us whenever we asked a question. But yeah, just I am as honest as possible from start to finish with why we can't get in early. And I have had so much pushback in my time as guest services, but explaining the holidays, explaining we will do everything that we can to ensure that this is happening. But yeah,
it's really hard.
It is hard.
Yeah. So I do think it's really good for homeowners to understand, like it's something as simple as figuring out and negotiating and coordinating for early check-ins and or late departures is actually like it seems like whatever, just figure it out. But it's honestly, it's like juggling 50 things at one time because you're literally thinking about the inspectors on the departure, the housekeepers, the pre-inspection before the arrival, like getting we put like amenities, like all the soaps and shampoos, plus the treats we leave for people. And we do like these ballerina farm croissants and like all these details that make the stay so great.
Or if they have groceries that need to be delivered,
or their grocery
baby
delivery,
gear, or ski butlers,
oh my God, all of it. Like, it's just like, there's
there's
much.
a lot. It's a whole like scheduling every day of just like each guest.
This is the sausage. This is what I mean. It's like all the animal parts, all the spices. Like, there's so much weird little stuff in there. It has to all get ground together and somehow come out looking like a perfect, beautiful sausage.
With a bottle of champagne ready.
So it's just like way harder than people realize.
Yeah.
And I also think it's like taxing on your soul, like we were saying before. Well, because it's like, if you're in guest services or concierge, you care about making people happy.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, hopefully, right? So that's something for homeowners. Like, you have to think about too, like, if you're working with a property management company, you want to ask about like the team who's doing guest services and concierge, maybe even like see if you can use them yourself to try them out, because it's like, that's something to look at, is like, are these the kind of people that really care about making other people happy?
You have to have empathy.
Yeah.
In guest services.
Yeah. But then here's the double-edged sword too.
Then I feel like I feel like the guest in the situation where I'm like, oh, you told me no. And then I'm as mad as them.
Yeah. No, totally. Which is perfect.
Like, darn it.
Because you are the advocate for the guest, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's like this whole thing, because it's the double-edged sword is, you have to be the kind of empathetic, caring person to be in that role to do a good job. But if you actually care, now you're in this situation where you're going to feel bad at the end of the day if you can't give people what they wanted, which sometimes just based on scheduling and timing, like, you just physically can't.
Right.
Like, if we had a genie that could just like get the house clean with like a little wiggle of the nose and their arms crossed, then like, cool. But we don't. I mean, until we get like AI, can we please figure that out? Can we get some sort of like, magical house cleaning that takes like 30 seconds? That would really solve most of our problems when it comes to early and late check-in, check-out. But this whole thing is like definitely it's one of the ongoing, almost unsolvable issues in vacation rentals, probably hotels too, but hotels are easier because they have so many of the same type of room. They have more flexibility to move people around. When you're talking about like individual unique houses, it's just that house. And if there's a same day turnover, then it's hard, like really hard.
And in that same point, yes, every room would be the same standard for where the remote is, where the TV is, where the bed is.
All of that.
Whereas when I'm getting a text, how do I use this TV? Okay, which TV in which room? It's in the living room. Okay, the upstairs living room? Yeah. Is it in the house out back? Is it the one that you're like, there's so many questions that that you have to ask in order to get them the correct answer.
Yeah.
So it's like you have to like troubleshoot the whole
details
time.
are like
the details.
Infinitely more vast. Right. And hard to control. Because this is all the difference with hotel and vacation rental. But like, the idea that you can stay in a bigger property that has more bedrooms and more living space, this is all part of the benefit. But for the property management side, this is what makes it really complex. Another reason that we freaking love Breezeway, because Breezeway, with their task management and all their templates that we use to like create the checklist and understanding in our property information documents and stuff, like this is so important. But I think, from the concierge and guest services standpoint, it's like being able to have tools for concierge and guest services in order to house all this information properly. Thank you to Breezeway for making that possible. And then really then on the side of like making sure that the people working in that role not only have those tools, but also have the empathy and the care inside of them to really advocate for the guests and try to make everything that they want happen. That's just a lot. It's not like just because you care about the guest, you can make it happen. It's just not that easy.
It's like, I promise I care about your stay as much as the next person's stay, as much as the owner's stay. Everybody's stay is the same care that I give.
Yeah. And it's like the housekeeping team, the inspector team, all of these factors have to keep happening like clockwork in order to make the next step, stage happen, which will, in some cases, is like that early check-in. So it's really hard. I do think it's really important for homeowners to understand, like, one thing is, as a homeowner, you can look at the reviews online for the company that you're going to work with and see, are there a lot of comments on there? And, you can look at reviews on VRBO, you can look at reviews on Airbnb, you can look at reviews on Google. There's a lot of you can look on their website. You can usually find a bunch of resources for reviews, and you can see if there's a lot of people in their reviews commenting on like quick response time, like really kind guest services, or, oh, the abode team is amazing. Like, I think you want to look and see if those kind of comments are coming up in the reviews for the company, because in that way you would know, hopefully, that the guests staying in your property, whoever is managing it, are going to be taken care of. Like if you can see that historical commentary, then I think you can get a good feeling about it.
Yeah.
And I know with us, like we have that. We definitely, like Jessie and her coworkers who work alongside her, it's like they do this insanely amazing job responding to guests. So like almost every review says like, oh yeah, the house was amazing. It was better than pictured. You know, the location was so perfect, so easy to go skiing. And also the abode team was so responsive and, you know, got back to us on every single thing. And at one point the dishwasher wasn't working right, but they sent someone right out and everything we needed, they got back to us. And people say that constantly. And so it's like, that's how you know that the team that's like taking care of these guests that are staying at your house, that they care.
Yeah.
Because I feel like when people, if a property management vacation rental company, if the people that they have hired to respond to guests are doing it like without empathy, without that kind of extra layer of kindness, you're probably not going to see commentary specifically calling them out in a positive way if it's just like a basic response. But if the guest can feel that someone cares, that they're not just like in this town they've never been to before without anyone having their back, then, you know, that's just kind of another strike against vacation rentals, against the next guest looking to stay in a house and now they're going to pick yours or not.
Yeah.
So I think it's like seeing that the property management company you work with has a guest services or concierge team that really cares, and seeing reviews like that. I think if you're a property owner, like you're actually looking at a way that, number one, you're going to get good reviews for your property. Number two, maybe you're going to get higher rates because people are going to look online and they're going to be comparing rates, but also reviews. So it's like there is actual financial gain to be had from working with a company who has amazing guest services type reviews. So, I mean, look, there's so many factors that go into good reviews and being able to charge higher rates. But I do think that service concept is huge. Okay. Is there anything you feel like, Jessie, that's like if someone's going to work in a guest services or concierge role, like, is there any kind of job maybe that they would have had previously that would be like a really good precursor? Or is there any kind of like personality traits that you feel like are an absolute must? Something like that?
Well, I mean, I guess speaking from personal experience, I mean, like I've been a barista. I've worked in ski wear and sales. I've sold rocks.
Retail. Yeah. Retail. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think retail is great. Being able to actually just communicate, and like when I'm on the phone, I'm smiling and pretending as if I'm talking to the guest in person.
I do the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Because then it's the same. And then whenever you meet them in person, they're like, oh my gosh, you've been who I've been talking to.
Right. They feel like
it's
they're
this
like your
amazing
friends
thing.
already.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, I think just having
like customer service background, I guess.
Customer service, and
like, would you say like retail, maybe restaurant?
Yeah. I think servers would be phenomenal because they have to set a pacing.
Yep.
And that would be really good for like standardizing check-in times and things like that, and knowing that they are going to get pushed back.
Yeah.
But still being able to have a good
or
attitude
maybe
about
even
it.
if someone's been like a host in a restaurant, because that would be that same thing of being able to manage people's expectations of like how much longer they're going to have to wait or whatever.
Yeah.
That would apply, right?
Well, and like even Chris, my fiance, he's worked in like water mitigation. He's hung artwork.
Yeah.
He's done kind of these random odds and ends that have built who he is now.
Yeah.
And I feel like, just having those forward-facing jobs.
You're right. Like
and
customer-facing jobs. Yeah.
You just have to know how to talk to people.
Yeah.
And
which, I mean, I feel like that sounds so easy, but it's really hard.
Oh, when I first started here, and I would get those questions of like, okay, I'm staying at this address, even though they didn't say the abode name. Yeah. And then that's like, where do I go from here? And then like having Trello before, where if you copied it and then accidentally deleted it, it's gone forever. And Chris created those, the PIDs.
Oh my God, yes.
So he standardized like, okay, this keeps happening. So let's set a template for each of our properties. Yeah. And because he did that during his time here, that's what we have as our standard.
Now it's like grown and changed into like this whole format that's like everyone totally, it's like what we've talked about it on previous episodes, the PIDs, the property info documents, which is like a complete like center of our process these days.
Yeah.
And all of that did start with Jesse's fiance, Chris. That's crazy. You're right. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, I just remember when I didn't have that,
Yeah.
I felt like I was scrambling and I couldn't get them the answers that they needed because I'm like, I don't know where the lockbox is here. I don't know where this thing is.
Yeah.
But yeah, standardizing it so that it feels as though it's a hotel room because I have all that information now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't even
Yeah.
know where we was started from this, but
no, to me, what it is like, and this is probably some secret sauce, Helen. I feel like, we've talked in some previous episodes about like operations and even like from homeowner acquisition and like sort of onboarding, the piece of really standardizing and utilizing like a property information document process. We've talked a lot about Breezeway and that operational process stuff. And I think the secret sauce here is like, okay, you have to have an excellent process with an excellent documentation system for each house with all these details like Jesse and I talked about earlier. And then you have to combine that with people who care and like some sort of tool to use with your concierge and guest services in terms of task management and invoicing and itinerary creation and stuff. And then those are probably the two of the strongest, most important parts to have good guest services, because you have to be able to have the good information for your team to utilize to be able to help the guests with the questions about remotes or whatever.
And updating it as you receive it. Like, hey, just so you know, this says this in the guide, but it's actually this.
Yes.
Perfect.
Always
Thank you.
double-checking.
And now we can fix it for the next guest. We really appreciate you telling us.
Yeah, when a guest calls out, like, the document info, the info document in the house said, I don't know, the garage code was this, but you had told us a different code in the email, and this is the one that actually works or whatever. Because, sometimes, like we said, there's so many variables. So being able to like manage your variables, make sure your centralized documents are always correct, which means you're going to always be flexible in updating them, combining that with having a team that cares. Like that's the secret sauce, I think. Which is cool. So we just gave everyone the secret to amazing guest services and concierge. And then homeowners, these are the things that you need to like tell the team that's managing your house. And if you're working with a BOD, like then Jesse's one of those people and like she has this handled. But if you're not working with a BOD and maybe you have a house in Costa Rica and like someone's managing it, these are the things you can ask your property manager. I think these are some of the things that can make it easy to have a conversation with a property manager about this topic and to really ask like for the details and the questions that count.
Yeah.
I think. So yeah.
And you have to try the things you're selling.
Yeah.
You have to go snowmobiling. You have to go ski the Ski Deer Valley.
People,
you have to try the coffee.
Yes. All of it.
There's all the things.
Yes. Because I do think like you can't offer that sort of emotional selling to someone if you haven't like experienced the thing you're selling.
Right.
Yeah, totally.
And even if a guest says, hey, I used this chef, just, they were outstanding and you guys should use them. Like I take all the feedback I receive and I bring it in so that I can do that for the next guest.
Yeah.
And that actually helped me with a recent situation because a guest that I helped with an engagement up at Deer Valley had gotten her own chef, and then he and I connected and he was really sweet and I remembered that. And then this recent guest that's coming in this weekend, his chef canceled on him.
Oh.
And this guy was able to save his vacation.
Yeah.
And it was just like that connection. Had I just let that go, even though I didn't set up the chef, it wouldn't have helped this guest. So it's like keeping the information you get and giving it to everybody else.
That's karma.
Exactly.
Yeah, I always say that. It's like you can't ever think that we're like too good to need, someone or whatever. It's like you never know when
we're always learning.
I mean, we operate in small towns too. Like you never know like who you're gonna need. You're gonna need another chef. You're gonna need another masseuse. You're gonna need, so we can never like be rude or like ungrateful to any of these service providers because we're small towns. There's not that many people. We have to be best friends with everyone. I mean, unless they're like a terrible person that's really mean, but usually they're not.
You could try your hardest to just make them not mean.
Yes. But have boundaries still.
Yes,
okay.
Exactly.
Because we believe in therapy and boundaries around here.
Yes, for sure.
Okay. So I feel like we covered some good things. Okay. So I'm going to go recap here. So we talked about like, one of the great parts of guest services and concierge is being able to like really know the market that you're selling in, to have like all of that personalized detail, whether it's the best coffee shop, the best ski run, the best surfing place, like whatever. And that, if you're a property manager, that you want to make sure the team that's managing your house and offering the service to guests has that local knowledge so they can offer those customized details to the guests before they check in. We talked about how like a really difficult part of the process is the whole collaboration, coordination, crazy mess of everybody wanting early arrivals and late checkouts, and how, really, really hard and unusually complicated that is, so much more than it seems, and how it can be so difficult because with good guest services and concierge people, they're going to always want to make the guest happy, and how hard it is to make them happy when those kind of requests come in, just logistically. And then we talked about people, and like when you're looking at people who are doing guest services and concierge work, like the kind of backgrounds that people can have. And wait, what was the last thing we were talking about? I can't remember. And then the piece about like how important operations and like property information documents and all of that are really sort of like the roots that you can build a good guest services team on, so that your team can have all the knowledge that they need. Because yes, you want like a good caring person, but they have to have the knowledge they need to. So this is so much more complicated than people realize. So I'm glad we're giving you like a tiny peek, because this is just like literally scratching the surface of what goes into guest services and concierge. But it's something. So we hope everyone got something out of this episode. I know there's probably like at least like 4,500 people listening at the moment that this gets released.
We're hoping, yes.
But if not, if there's only like 4 people, that's fine. But hopefully some homeowners get to hear this, and then some people in vacation rentals and property management. And if not, we had fun anyway, so whatever. And and otherwise, I guess we'll see you next time on the Hospitality Break Room. Thanks.